Hello there, all my lovely jewelry makers. I'm Christina at CSLdesigns, and in today's tutorial I'm going to show you how you can capture a cabochon using the excess wire weave. Now this is especially great if you want your cabochon to stand out while at the same time having a lovely frame around it. So if you want to learn how you can do this for yourself, then keep watching. Then the materials we'll need are first of all our wire, and I'm working with a regular round silver coated copper wire. The first gauge is a 0.8mm and will be the base wire. The second gauge is a 0.4mm and that will be the weaving wire. And of course we can't forget we need our stone as well. So I'm using this teardrop shaped cabochon, and it's a labradorite. You can see a very beautiful flash there. Now this will work for many different shapes and sizes, but the specific one that I'm using measures 4 by 2 centimeters. For the tools I'm going to be using some wire cutters so we can of course cut the wire, tweezers and nose pliers to manipulate the wire with, and finally I'm using a crochet hook to help shape the bail because they come in so many different sizes. Don't forget you can check out the description box below the video for the material list and any useful links. Otherwise, let's get all the materials and tools ready and let's get started. Then we need to cut some lengths of wire, and I have 2 lengths of my 0.8mm here of about 30 centimeters each. And then I have 4 lengths of my 0.4mm of about 1 meter each. Now of course the lengths of the wires you'll need will depend on the stone that you're using. So I'm starting at grabbing one of my base wires and one of my weaving wires, and we need to attach these together to get started with the weave. So I'm just placing my weaving wire behind the base wire, leaving a short tail to hold on to, and we want to make sure to leave a length on the base wire as well because we're going to use that for the bail. But other than that, just bring it behind there, and then I just want to wrap it around the base wire a few times, basically coiling it around, making sure the wraps are nice and tight together, which you can also do using a pair of pliers just to push them together there. And then once you wrapped it around a few times like that, I'm then going to grab a second weaving wire and do the same thing. So leave a little tail and put that behind, and then you want to wrap this around the same way to attach it, but do it after the one that we just attached. And this time I want to do the amount of wraps that I'm going to continue to do throughout the weave. Now I've done 11 wraps on mine here, but you can easily do more or less. It all depends on how you want yours to look and also what stone you're using. So I have these two attached now. We then need to do the same thing with the rest of the wires, but in a mirrored image. So I'm grabbing my last base wire and then also the first of the 2 weaving wires we have left. Again, leave a short tail, and this time I'm going to bring it so the tail there comes downwards instead of how it was before. So that makes sure it gets in the mirrored image, and again, make sure to leave a tail on your base wire. And otherwise, just do the same thing of attaching the first one here and wrapping it around a few times. And once you've done that, grab the remaining weaving wire, place that in the same direction there so the tail comes downwards towards you. And otherwise, just start wrapping it around to attach it. And this time, we then want to do that same amount of wraps that we did on the second one we attached the first time we did it. So just make sure that that's the same amount, which in my case was 11 here. And then once we've done that, we have both sides ready, so I can bring the other one back in. And when I place them next to each other, you can see that the short tails are wanting to go towards each other and the long lengths that we're working with are going away from our wires. And basically now we need to start attaching these two together as well and start creating the actual weave. So what we also just need is the cabochon handy, so we can use that for reference because we need to have, while we're weaving, a distance between our 2 base wires. So to start with, I just want to have a good idea of the distance. So I use the cabochon to just the side there. We need to make sure the base wires come just on the outside of either side of the cabochon to get a good idea of the distance we need. And then to get started with the weave, it doesn't matter where you start from, but I'm just going to start from the bottom here, but just stay consistent so it becomes symmetrical throughout. Just get the wires in place. Then I'm going to start with the bottom, but the furthest back one, so the very first one that we attached, I'm going to bring that over the top in towards the middle here, between the 2 wires, and then over underneath the opposite base wire. And this is where it can just be a little bit tricky because we need to keep the distance between the wires. Whereas once you start wrapping this around, they're going to naturally want to pull close to each other, but just keep that distance. So just do it gently. And then you want to wrap this around the opposite base wire, but after the other wrap. So you can see the wire crosses over there, but at an angle, and then just push it down. You can always use pliers as well to help you maneuver it where you want it to go. And that is basically now gone from one side to the opposite side. And then I want to wrap around the same amount of times that I did when I attached my second wires on both base wires. So in my case here, that's 11, so I can just count my wraps. So I have my 11 wraps now with that wire. And then this, you could say, is the first part of the first X that we're doing. To make the other half of it, I'm going to grab the very first wire we attached on the opposite base wire, so the one that we've just been wrapping around, around, but the opposite to the one that we started with, and then bring it over the wire. Now this is the one in the opposite direction here, and then bring it over and then in between the two and down underneath the one on the opposite side here, and then you can see that creates our very first X. And then basically here you want to do the same thing that we just did up here, so just wrap around the base wire after the wraps are already on there, and again just do it gently, making sure we keep that distance between the base wires. And I do recommend that you regularly bring in the cabochon just to measure that you're still going in the right direction. But then again, wrapping this the same amount of times. And we're now back to having 2 weaving wires on either side there. So you could say this is the starting point and we've done our first X. Now all there is to do is continue like this. So again, I'm going to start with the bottom one there, and I'm bringing it over the top and then down between the 2 base wires to come underneath the one on the opposite side. And again, keeping that distance, but then wrap around the opposite base wire to attach it, wrapping it the same amount of times. And then again, you can see we created the first half of our next X, and to do the other half we need to grab the wire from the opposite side to where we started out. But again, the first one, bring that over to then come down between the 2 base wires and underneath the opposite base wire to then wrap around the same amount of times. But again, just making sure we have the distance correct, because you will find that your base wires will start to kind of naturally pull towards each other, and you just want to make sure that you stay consistent with the distance. And then we have our second X there, and you just want to continue like this until you have the length that you need. So now I got my weave here, and to know how long you need to make yours, an easy way is to take your cabochon and just measure around it. You can just use a scrap piece of wire or cord and then just straighten it out, and then you can compare and see how long you need to make it weave. But now that that's done, we need to start shaping this. So again, I'm going to bring in the cabochon. I'm just going to shape it straight around the cabochon here, place the middle on the bottom, and then push the sides around the cabochon up towards the top. And then basically the cabochon is going to end up sitting in almost a little will that's been created by the weave that we made. And you can just take a bit of time and just kind of make sure to push it against the stone so it really grabs onto it nicely, and it's going to sit there securely. So the way you can test it is grab hold of the top to make sure they are together, and then try and move the stone and see if you can force it out. And if you can't, then it's going to be nice and secure. Now what I'm then going to do is, obviously we need to attach the tops together there because it's still open. So having it closed around the cabochon, I can then see where I need to make my bends. So I want to grab onto the base wire after the weave and just kind of bend it back out to the side a bit, just grabbing one at a time. So just something a bit like that, and then you can do the same on the back. And then what we want to do is use one of the weaving wires here to fasten the base wires together at the top, so it's going to be nice and secure. You can just use the very last one that is closest, so just going from the one side where it's coming from over to the opposite side. You can just wrap around with a figure of 8 weave and just do it twice on the opposite side there. And I'm making sure that I'm really pushing against the cabochon to make sure the frame is as tight as possible around it so it doesn't loosen up while we're working with it. Go back to the opposite side, go around twice again, and then that side is done. Just flip to the back and do that one as well. And then when you fastened it, the stone should be in there nice and securely. You can easily let go and it shouldn't come out. Obviously if it does come out, it's a bit loose, then you might just have to redo that bit to make sure it's really nice and tight. So what I'm going to do is on the back, I'm just going to leave these 2 base wires for now and the weaving wires. I'm going to go back to the front, and you can just kind of push anything gently out of the way, and I'm going to now start weaving the bail here. So that's the 2 base wires at the front, and then just continue using that weaving wire that we used to fasten with, and we're going to start building the bail. Now my wires are naturally coming out to the side, so I'm just going to use that shape because I want my bail to graduate outwards a bit and then back inwards, so the widest point is going to be the middle of the bail. So you just want to keep using the figure of 8 weave. When you then reach what's going to be the midpoint, I want to start tapering the base wires inwards again. So I'm just going to grab my Twizzlers pliers and just grab the base wire one at a time right after where the weave ends so far, and bend them inwards again towards each other, just gently. And then we need to continue the same weave, but the wire naturally wants to slip from the wider point to the narrower point when you're weaving. So to counteract that, what I like to do is, as I'm bringing it towards the opposite side for the next wrap, I like to hold down the side where it's coming from while I then wrap on the other side here, and then that's pushing down the weave as well. As you're pushing it there, go to the opposite side again, and as you're wrapping that, hold down the side where the wire is coming from and just push it down nicely, and then just keep pushing it down to make the weave as tight as possible. And then weave till the end until we have the full length we need for the bail. Then when I'm done weaving the bail, we can take in a crochet hook here. I'm just using this to help shape the bail. You can really use anything you got handy. Place it behind roughly the middle and push it backwards. Now you might have to just bring it forward a bit so your wires will fit, but then push it down so we get this kind of rounded nice shape. And then what might just be handy is cutting down the length of these two base wires that we just bent a little bit, just so we have some shorter lengths to work with. And then what we want to do is get these two base wires down through in between the stone and the frame. So you can just maneuver your wires however you need to. So I'm just going to grab onto one at a time and then bring it through, gap right there at the very tip, and just bring it through to come out at the back. Now of course we want to just bring the other one with us as well. So we have both of these lengths going through that gap, and then we just want to pull it all the way through so we bring the very end or back of the bail downwards nice and close to the frame, and it's sitting on the inside of the other base wires there. And you can see we have that nice shape because we already bent it around the crochet hook, and then we have them coming out towards the back like this, but at the very top. Now because it's a little bit busy with all the ends of the weaving wires that we have, I just want to start to get rid of them now as well. So starting at the front, and I have these short little tails from the very beginning, just gonna take one at a time, and then I want to see where the final wrap is. Now these ones are coming from the back, so what I'm going to do is just bring them towards the front, kind of one more wrap you could say, but it's just filling in that little space that might be there in the weave. Then I'm going to go in and cut off the excess, but making sure to leave a tiny little tail. You'll be able to see sticking out right there. Same with the other one, because I then take my Tweezernose pliers again, and I want to then push them down and kind of roll my pliers in the direction that the wrap is going, which means we're then tucking them away so it's not going to be on the outside and be able to catch or scratch on any clothes or skin. So that's those two gotten rid of. Can just do the same with this one here on the other side. Now this one wraps around the opposite direction, so it's wrapping towards the back, but again just cut off the excess, leaving a short little tail, and then just push that down and roll the pliers in the direction that the wrap is going, and it just tucks them away nicely. And we can just flip it around to the back and do the same thing. We got these wires here, so just get rid of them in the same way. So then we are just left with our base wires. So I'm just going to deal with the two on the back here that we brought through the frame, and they're coming out through the frame at the very top there. Now I'm going to grab one, going to bring that kind of back around the side of the bail, and then the other one I'm going to bring around the other side like that, so they're kind of splitting apart there. Then I'm going to cut down the excess, so again we have a short little end left like that. Same on the other side. And then just take my Tweezernose pliers and push them down, because right now they're kind of sticking out and away from the piece, and then just nudge that very end of the wire all the way in and push it around the frame, and the other one as well. And the last two base wires I have on the back here, they're going straight up. Now what I'm going to just do with them is just grab hold of them a bit further out with my Tweezernose pliers, and then I want to put a twist into these. So I'm grabbing hold of them with my pliers there, and then I'm twisting my piece, but I'm kind of keeping hold of it down here, so it's just these wires that are affected, and I just want to add a twist into it, and it's up to you how tight you want your twist. So I'm going to leave it there, and then I want to basically follow the bail, so I'm just shaping it around the very top of the bail. So from the front it's going to look a little something like that. Just add a bit of extra design detail, and then I just want to undo the twist. That's why there's no need for you to make the twist too long. I need to undo it until it hits the very beginning of the bail, and then just get rid of those ends as well, and obviously fasten it in place. I'm going to cut down the ends so I have still just a bit of a length left, something roughly like that. Same on the other side. And then again take my Tweezernose pliers, and we just want to get these around the sides of the bail and basically get them on the inside. And once you've done that on both sides, you just need to add your chain through the bail, and your pendant is done and ready to wear. So I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Now both of these pendants are available for sale in my shop, so I'm going to leave a link to it in the description box down below. And while you're there, you can sign up to my newsletter so you never miss out on any future updates. So I really hope you enjoyed this one. Thank you so much for watching it, and I'll see you in the next one.